Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Leader's Voice podcast. This podcast is basically to amplify the voices of leaders, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs who live an energy driven leadership. Hi, I am Deepa Mahesh, a leadership coach and a facilitator, and I'm very passionate about broadcasting inside out success. Now, the question is that is only success measured by what you achieve? Well, that's one aspect. But what about your inner world that leads to all that you get the success outside? And that's why we wanted to invite guests on our podcast and listen to their life, their stories, how they have reached where they reached, and what is the aspect of their inner world and how they have mastered it, so that it gives us learning clues to live with joy, ease, and balance. So, on today's podcast, we have a very special guest, Loshika Yogarajah. Welcome, Loshika.
Hi, Deepa. Thank you so much. So nice to be here.
Thank you. I know, thank you. Me too. So, a little bit about Loshika. Loshika is an engineer with a background in construction, manufacturing, defense, and transport. These days, she manages a large portfolio of projects in the water infrastructure space where no 2 days are the same. And she says leadership is just as much about problem solving as it is about people. Outside of work, she's passionate about growth, both her own and the people around her. She loves learning, whether it's through Carnatic music, yoga, coaching, or getting lost in a great personal development book. She's also deeply committed to championing women in construction, building strong relationships in her personal and professional life, and most importantly, raising a happy child. I met her, a couple of months ago, and when I first saw what I heard, I first saw was power. And as I got to know her deeper and deeper, I realized that she embodies different shades of power. The soft power, which she uses with her loved ones, and the strong power in her other life's contexts. And it's truly a pleasure to know you. Thank you so much for befriending and the way we met. It's very special for me. And I thought the world must know you, and which is why you're on this podcast.
Thank you so much, Deepa. You definitely make me sound like a very interesting person. So thanks for that great introduction. But
Yeah.
I am so happy to be here. You are obviously my coach, Deepa, and what a blessing for you to invite me to have a conversation in this forum. So thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So Loshika lives in Sydney, Australia, and she loves life, which you would witness in her laughter every now and then.
Oh God.
No, that's a pressure.
Yes, right.
Not at all, not at all. Uh, so let's begin this conversation. Like you rightly said, it's a conversation. So I'm very interested in knowing because I know that you're a very strong corporate leader and you also have this very spiritual aspect to you. So you kind of balance the two, the one that's outer and the one that's in your inner. So when did you recognize this need for balance and this integration of the outer and the inner?
So I think very much when I started my career, it was a lot about the outer. And perhaps I even went out of my way to shape my outer or make the outer work for me. And it did work most of the times. But there were moments, particularly in my professional life, when I made decisions. Um, I could I could see the difference in the outcome between when the decision was majority based on the outer factors versus when the decision was based on the inner factors and inner sense, I guess. And a lot of the times when things didn't work out for me in professional life, I think it went back to me not listening to my inner guidance. Or sometimes to some people it comes in the form of like gut feel. And I realized that as I was sort of progressing through to middle management, I realized that that is when things don't go my way, when I don't listen to my gut feel. And so I decided to give a lot more importance to that guidance, that gut feel. And as I did, things just started to fall into place. And so I think it's just then from that point onwards, it's just, well, that worked out and that worked out. And so there's just, keep listening to that inner guidance. And it was just a journey, I guess. It was not one point in time, but it is
Yeah.
trial and error through the decisions I had to make along the way. And I just figured it out and it's working. So I'm going with it.
So good, so good. So, normally when I'm facilitating in sessions, they say, you've come to corporate, you've come to office, so keep your emotions at home and bring your full head here. And I am of the opinion that, the head and the heart, and then the gut and intuition, like you said, it just makes us a whole being. And I think all these factors together contribute to our success. What's your view on that?
Absolutely. And one of the things, so I have been in a male-dominated industry majority of my career. And when I started my career, I observed female leaders who, you know, were who were themselves and authentic and were bringing the emotions and the strengths that come with being a female and being
Yes.
bringing that feminine energy to work. And at the same time I also observed women, female leaders who um, felt as though they had to be somebody else. They had to
Yes.
have this this had to bring this masculine energy to the workplace. And so I'm very observant. And so because I saw leaders who did that but also did this, I was
Yes.
able to see what worked. And I felt that we need to early on told myself, no, although I work in a male dominated space, I am going to be who I am, and I'm going to bring in what I know best, and I'm going to bring in everything that comes with being a female leader. And so I think it's so important. It's so important to, not because we have strengths, we have women have, some le- level of intuition, and we can leverage of that and to use it to our benefit. And so I think I recognized that that was important. And I always said, I am going to be the whole package of what it's like to be, what it's like to, being a woman in the outer world is what I will bring to the workplace. And everything that comes with it, all encompassing, all the strengths and all, and the weaknesses and the emotions, all of that. And I think that's what is needed and that's what is necessary in a workplace. And and the more that I do that, the more I see that, people, junior people that are coming into the business are starting to model that also, which is so nice to see. And so I think it's so important. The balance of all that is very important. So, and I've seen it in my journey being in that male dominated space.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. It was so powerful, the aspects that you shared. One is that you shared that just be yourself, which actually needs you to allow yourself to be yourself. Because normally in our upbringing, we always are told, be like them, be like that. There's a lot of comparison. And then we start comparing ourselves with the other and say, okay, they are better or they are better. And I don't allow myself to be myself. And what you're saying, because you're saying it, you allow, and when we allow, that's so peaceful because you don't have to be like somebody else. That's very, very strong. Now, to do this, Loshika, you need to be very confident. You need to
Mm.
be able to know your ground. You need to be able to say, I am this is what it is. With my strengths, I'm going to play it. Isn't it?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I think confidence has, many faces, many facets to confidence. And I think there's a lot of ways to gain confidence. And it does play a huge part. But I think it is, I find, it was interesting that you said, like, growing up, you think, oh, I want to be like this person, or we should be like this person, we should be like this person. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, in the sense of, in a workplace, if you look at somebody and you admire what they do, and you look up to them, it's a good thing, in the sense of
Yeah.
it is giving you some level of feedback. And so you
Yes.
must question within yourself and go, well, why do I look up to this person? What is it about that person that I really like? Or what is it that that resonates with me? Or what about that person that I, really want to model? And so
Yeah.
that is a clue for you. And they say,
Yes.
feedback is gift. And so that
Yes.
is, I see that as, a level of, okay, then what do I then need to do to get myself to that? And it's not becoming those people
Yeah.
completely,
Yeah.
but it is taking the good from,
Yes.
what you admire about
Yes.
that
What I
person,
saw.
what
Yeah.
you saw, and then, building that. And that is just one building block.
Yes.
And you've got the other pieces. So confidence gets
Yes.
built like that. And it
Yes.
is a you have to make conscious effort to build confidence. I feel. And I guess one of the things that I practice a lot is that, I take every opportunity at work and every meeting at work to just build my confidence a little bit, right? So I said, I the person I am walking into, as the person I'm walking into this meeting, is not who I will be when I walk out of that meeting. I use every meeting in that way. And so how am I going to build my confidence a little bit? How am I going to try this one little technique
Mm.
to, build my confidence, little by little and little by little? And I think it works like that. And
Mm.
over time, you will not even realize, and you look back and you're like, wow, you know,
I'm that.
yeah, I'm that. Yeah, so it works like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's. I think it's a little bit like they say, you know, and and someone speaks about this. It's going to the gym. You go to the gym and you don't see results. You go to the gym, you don't see any results, and that one day you're like, wow, this has worked. And I think confidence works the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, somebody, I think Simon Sinek, he talks about that. And to me, I've really practiced that in my day to day. But it is you have to make a conscious effort.
Yes. And so even conscious, before that, you have an intention. You
Correct.
set that as an intention, and then you're being conscious to achieve that intention. So
Absolutely.
and this is really a mark of a conscious leader, I would say. You know what you are running for. You're not saying I'm conscious about achieving my goal. My goal will happen. But there are other aspects that I need to be conscious of. And confidence, it's like the foundation
Yes.
for achieving anything and everything.
Absolutely.
Yes. So one of the aspects also that you talked about was when we admire somebody, what can I learn from them, and then bring that slowly. Now, what I have observed is, I'm talking about about myself and a lot of people I coach, that when I admire, two things happen. One is there could be a possibility of fear, saying that I can never be that like that person. So fear can come in, then my intention of embodying the qualities goes out. There's fear.
Mm.
Or second thing is jealousy could come in. I can never be like that person. And so I start, being jealous. So, and both these throw our emotions off balance. So, I'm not sure if it's happened with you, but it has happened with me. So I thought I'll bring
Yes.
this here, see what's your view.
So I find that I think very early on in my career, perhaps I remember being in some meetings and going, I can never be like that person. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But then it's a little bit of taking a step back and going, they've had a different journey. And they probably have 20, 30 years ahead of me. Right?
Yeah.
And then going again, I think I go back to then, who do I desire to become? Who is that person that I want to be? And if you are, if you have to do a lot of inner work to figure that out.
Yes. Yes.
And once you figure that out, I think then that fear, there is no room for that fear, because you don't want to become that person. You want to become like who you want to become. And so then there is no competing, and there is no need for jealousy, I feel. But I think it's just reframing things within your mind, and being true to who you want to become. And I think that's it takes a lot of work. It's not easy, and it didn't come to me very easily. I think uh, you talk about inner work a lot, and I feel that we have to figure it out for yourself, and you have to put in the effort and the energy to figure out who do you want to become. And if that is clear to you, then those other things, there's no room for that. That is my take on it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. The purpose is clear.
Purpose is clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So everything starts with a purpose in mind, and therefore you don't want to be another person. You want to be you with those qualities that you admire in that opposite person.
Yes, and that is okay. It is okay
And
to
that's okay.
admire. It gives you, like, it's a bit of a guidance as to, oh, I like that. Let me
Yeah.
take that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And that's an expansion that you have. You're not stuck with who you are then. There's a possibility of expansion to your inner being.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Agree. Yeah.
And even in leadership, as you go to the next level, you need a different level of an inner to meet those challenges. So there's an expansion possibility.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think as you progress in your career and get into, much more sort of senior roles, I think is more of a reason to do inner work, and
Yes,
there's
yes,
more of a
yes.
need for that, because you find that it is really an exchange of energy. Is That's what is happening. Yes, it is about problem solving and it is about people, but with that is really what the currency is energy. And so, how you work, what drains your energy, what gives you energy, and understanding of that is so important. And as particularly as you progress through your career, I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so glad that you're talking about energy because I find that I'm sometimes mocked at for talking about energy, and it feels like one hush hush word which has no roots and it's like air. But and you said that as you go up the ladder, the currency is energy, and you have to know what gives energy and what takes energy. And Tim Galvani's beautiful equation says that performance is equal to potential minus interference. If I were to look at this equation from an energetic perspective, potential is also energy. The interference is also energy. And when I look at the interferences as energy, it is the energy, the lack of energy that you have. It is the energy of the emotions that either propel you or pull you back. It is the energy of your thoughts that either shrink you or expand you. So, what is your take? What have you observed in leaders about this, especially these interferences, which normally people see as external? I don't have this skill, or this manager is not so okay. So, there's only external interference that you see. But the internal energetic interferences people fail to observe, especially leaders. What's your take? Have you observed that also?
I think in oh, absolutely. I think the internal interferences, but that come in the form of thought,
Mm.
in the form of fear, in the form of self-doubt.
Yeah.
They're the ones that drain your energy, and so they have a direct impact on performance, and you have to be quite conscious of those. And I think as we keep going back to inner work, and as you do more and more of inner work, you will start to see patterns of when those thoughts are coming up. And when do you feel like those things, you're a bit drained. And so once you start noticing that, then you can, manipulate that and use it to your advantage. And even with fear, I think one of the recent things that I've been really playing with is that uh, fear is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It is there and it's serving a purpose. But it is then I think you have to compartmentalize it and acknowledge it. It's there, and it's I kind of before I take a big step into something, if I have some a big presentation, if I'm going into a massive negotiation meeting, um, I do the fear does start to come up, but I then acknowledge it, and I think the more and more I say, look, it's there. Let's acknowledge it, and let's just get comfortable with it being there. So I think everybody has fear, like regardless of like who you are, the fear will come depending on your experience, depending on your the subject matter, familiarity, lots of things. Fear is there, but I think people just get better at just having it there, acknowledging it, having it there, and so I think more and more I'm also starting to do that, and I feel as soon as I name it, as soon as I say it's there, it's okay, it almost like kind of goes away. you know, but you don't give it much. If you don't give it much importance, it goes away. It's like, yeah, I know you're there, but and it goes kind of
Yeah.
goes away. So I feel it's those interference that come up within yourself. They are much bigger barriers to performance and the output than even external factors at times. But it's yeah, it is just then working with yourself and understanding yourself and your emotions and your thought process and seeing those patterns, and then okay, then how do I then deal with it? And we all have different ways, and for me I think acknowledging it's there has helped.
Mm. And if you, as a senior leader, do this, and then when your team member goes through something, you'll be able to also identify and call it out for them, and they learn from you. Have you experienced that in your leadership journey?
Oh, I think it is both ways. Like people will model and mirror good and the bad, and so if it's about, you can't put it on as a leader, you can't fake it for too long. um so it they I think even if you come in, and if you are someone who gets interfered with your thoughts and your emotions and things like that, um and you allow that to impact the person you are, the leader you are, people will pick up on that too.
Mm.
So there is that too. Yes, I think, and then also then noticing that in others, you're able to also, because if you've been through that journey, if you go
You
through
can see
that
it.
journey, and then you can see it on others, and so you can point it out, and point it out in obviously in a way that is going to help them, and you can make the environment more comfortable, so it helps you be more supportive as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another thoughts that's coming up for me is this aspect today, which is workaholism. This fear of switching off, fear that, if I go home, I have to keep working till the last minute, till my eyes kind of don't shut and tell me to sleep. And then the work never ends. And they say that I'm being loyal to the organization. But at what cost is the question? And somewhere, if you go deep down, there is a fear of losing control, losing. There's some fear. There are different aspects of fear, actually. What has been your experience with this? Not just for yourself, but your team members and the leaders around.
Yes. um that is something that I haven't figured out completely, to be honest. I think I also struggle with that a lot. I must confess, because there is, I think, if you are working a lot, and sometimes you do need to work, you need to put in the hours, and if it's a short-term thing, then that is okay.
Yeah.
If it's a task-based thing, then that's fine. But if you are doing that months on end, then you have to ask yourself the question, at what cost? um I think if you are not enjoying what you're doing and it is months on end, if you are like absolutely hating it and still doing long hours and doing all that, it is not healthy, it's not sustainable, and
Sustainable. Yeah.
it's not and you have to think about, well, is this worth it for me? But if you really enjoy what you do, and it is just a short term thing, and that is fine, but in the long term you have to put boundaries, and boundaries in the sense of, I talked to my mentor about this, and he one of the things that he said to me is that you have to obviously try and find a balance, but there are ways to integrate work with life also. And then there's no one solution, and you have to try and find a way to balance it. And it's all you have over time, you'll figure it out. And it all depends on the nature of the work that you do and all of that. But I am constantly struggling with that, Deepa. I cannot say I've figured it out, because I
Mm.
put in a lot of hours. But I make sure there is clear non-negotiables in life. So if
Mm.
I, spending, obviously, spending time with my son, making, and if I'm putting in the hours, then it is like after he's gone to bed, I probably put in an hour or two. But sleep for me is just so important. Like it's just those, they have to have non-negotiables. So a good night's sleep, making sure that you're spending time, and you're making, like, setting up like date nights with my husband. I think that's one of those things. It's like you have to do those things, otherwise, it will get out of hand. So I feel that's how I manage those little
Yeah.
things, but it helps to integrate it into your life, I feel. So it's not
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
a clear answer, I know, because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
constantly struggling. I think it is
Mm.
it's a real issue for all of us.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I hear that you've navigated it and you found a practical way of dealing with it. And I'm also hearing, Loshika, that there are certain rhythms and rituals that you have put in place to be able to find your balance. Like you say, your leadership, your authentic leadership, your balance. So what are the, rhythms and rituals you follow on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis to keep your sanity?
Yeah. So I think I think energies don't lie. Um, and so I make sure that for me, visiting my parents, and just having a quick cup of tea with my parents is an energy booster. So I make sure I do that on a weekly basis. And of course, I see my parents more often, but it's just going over to their house after work, one of those, or I have little things like that that will boost my energy. Talking to my sisters, and I take calls to my best friend, and I don't have an allocated time, perhaps, because we're all busy and that sort of thing. But when I'm driving to work, or when I'm going to get lunch, I make sure I call my friend, and that gives me a bit energy. So it is like those little energy boosts that I feel that really helps me. And then the flip side to it is making sure that I'm avoiding things that are draining my energy.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's just like, uh, if someone is sick, and they're coughing and sneezing, and you're like, okay, I need to not be here because I don't want to get sick. And so it's similarly, you have to like really protect your energy, because you know that you need it, and you're going to need it for the next half a day of meetings or whatever. So it's consciously like managing those energy. I feel that I'm so big on that, and that has worked for me. It has worked for me. So it's little things, nothing big. Of course, like, we're all work in progress. We can always find
Yes.
better ways to do things, but I think, for me, those little things make a big difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any time that you didn't listen to your intuition of avoiding that drainer and you went ahead and then realized the folly.
Oh,
Any such example?
I think sometimes, I think I find at work, you have to, like, knowing what the purpose of meetings is important, and what you are going to get out of a meeting is important. What value am I going to add to a meeting?
Right.
Knowing that is important. Sometimes I think probably earlier in my career, I used to just go to all meetings that I'm invited to, and sometimes like you're just kind of sitting in meetings all day and not really achieving things. So I think being and that drains energy, and because you're literally just sitting there going, what am I doing, why am I here? I should be doing all this other things, or I should be so it's like I find at work it's more just picking and choosing um where I can add value, where I'm going to gain value, and knowing that has helped manage that. So it's avoiding meetings that I don't actually need to be at. It can be a back brief. I don't need to really be there. So it's, but yeah, you over time figure it out, right?
Yeah, correct. Very true. I mean, I can relate to this when I was in my corporate days. I would attend all meetings and then come home and start my
Yeah,
work and then go through the night
yeah, exactly.
and
Work
wake up the
starts at
next day
5 p.m.
tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Lovely. So many things stood out for me, managing, and I think energy is a word we used, so often in our conversation today. And energy in leadership, and that's what this whole journey and this whole podcast is about. Because I hear people, leaders saying, I don't have time. And I say, if you don't have time for yourself, what are you doing what you're doing for? What's the purpose of life? It feels scary at times when I hear
Mm,
that.
yes. Yes. Oh, look, I think I've been there. But I think as soon as as now, as soon as I'm about to say it, and I stop myself. Again, it's yeah. Like we've all been there. We're all
Yeah,
learning,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Me too.
We're all learning.
Like me too,
Yeah.
and I had to literally step out of the workplace. And then I realized it's not the workplace to be blamed. It's about the choices I made and didn't make, which led me to a burnout.
Absolutely.
We can
Yeah.
always blame the other, but who takes responsibility?
Correct. Correct. Yes. Oh, you are ultimately responsible, right? For
Absolutely.
for, for
Yes.
everything that you say and do.
Correct. The buck stops at
Stuff.
me.
Yeah, that's it.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And before we end this conversation, which I don't want to, but yet we will. And what are your final thoughts to those leaders who will be watching this conversation? And what do you want them to take away?
I think, leadership is something that you cannot just rely on theory. Like you have to experience it. I think you have to get yourself out there, experience it, make mistakes, and figure out what works for you. And I think leadership is also um, is something that is not just one style that is going to work, and you have to figure out what are the styles that you are good at, and depending on what the situation requires, you'll need to wear that hat. And so I think it's, for me, what is it, I've read so many books on leadership, but until I actually got into a leadership role, um, and have learned the lessons myself, I don't think I knew anything about leadership, right? So it's about being, you have to throw yourself into learning it and experiencing it and challenging yourself. And so I think that is probably what I'll say. Just put yourself out there and learn as much as you can, and in a practical sense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your thoughts and views so candidly. And yeah, and all the best for your own leadership and your own expansion in your own authentic way.
Thank you so much, Deepa. As always, I've enjoyed our chat. So thanks very much.
Thank you.